The only way to celebrate the holiday season? Let's celebrate the UCLA men's basketball non-conference stretch. Good start, but still a lot to do.
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey everybody, it's Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Locked On UCLA. Thanks for making it your first listen each and every day. It's free wherever you get your podcast, and it's available on YouTube, amongst many places. Thanks for your likes, comments, and subscriptions. Keep the support. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy your holiday season. This episode is brought to you by BetOnline, as they've got you covered with more props, odds, and lines ever than before. BetOnline, where the game starts. And where we start today's episode is grading and rating who have been the most important players for the Bruins, who has been the MVP for the UCLA men's basketball team. And then we talk about who's been kind of a Cinderella, maybe not a Cinderella, but a dark horse, underappreciated player. And then also who needs to improve heading into Pac-12 play for Mick Cronin's bunch. UCLA 11-2, and you're going to keep hearing the same points I've been harping on in recent episodes, but now compacted into a segment to start this episode. So the Bruins 11-2, they won 8 in a row, 9-2 in non-conference play because of the two early Pac-12 games at the beginning of December, beating Stanford and beating Oregon. So in terms of overall momentum, the UCLA Bruins heading into the end of the 2022 calendar year are A++, as many plus as you can get, 5.0 on the GPA weighted scale, whatever you want to use to grade it out. Their momentum is as hot in the country as it gets. For any non-unbeaten team, the Bruins are as red hot as it gets, with two of the best wins in a single week one could arguably get in a weekend, other than that maybe Continental Main Tire weekend. The Bruins have picked it up and found themselves with defensive intensity and shooting the ball well. Overall, let's talk some team statistics first. UCLA is amongst the top 40 when it comes to scoring. They're an 80-point per game scorer, and a lot of teams can score, but the Bruins not only score amongst the best with them, averaging 80 points per game, top 40 in the country, just around that point, and they're amongst the top 30 in the country in scoring defense, only allowing about 61 and a half points per game against their opponents, as UCLA's got one of the better point margins in the country, beating teams by about 20 on average. It seems like not too many close games. In this 8-game winning streak, UCLA has only had one game within single digits, the Oregon game, which they did trail at the half, but they found a way to win that one by 9, closing it out late. UCLA, top 20 in the country when it comes to forcing turnovers on defense, close to 17 and a half per game. It's about 21 in the country. When it comes to taking care of the basketball, they're better than the top 10. They're 8th in the country when it comes to only turning it over 10 times per game. So for the Bruins, what is remarkable is that not only are they good defensively, they take care of the basketball. They can score despite not being a team that can shoot it and light it up from three outside of one individual who we'll talk about in a moment. The Bruins take care of the basketball, and because they force so many turnovers, they have arguably one of the best assist to turnover ratios in the country, and they have the third best turnover margin in the country when it comes to forcing about 18 turnovers a game if you round up, and only turning it over 10 times per game. That's about 7 extra possessions the Bruins are taking from their opponent and turning it into easy buckets down low. UCLA shoots about 50% from the floor, so it's not like they're not turning it into buckets. On average, they continue to score and score off their opponent's turnovers, which leads them to be a very successful unit. It's just remarkable how Mick Cronin's found his team that is top 20 in the country in field goal percentage. And he said it in post-game media availability time and time again that this team can shoot it amongst the best he's had in his career, dating back to the Murray State days, to his Cincinnati days, and now here to UCLA. This is one of the best shooting teams in terms of field goal percentage that he's had in his head coaching career. And of course, it helps when you have a Dembona down low who shoots 63%. Hawkes has been good, and then David Singleton as well. But I'm going to start with UCLA's MVP. The MVP is clear cut. It's Jalen Clark. Jalen Clark, who averages 15 points per game, as he did miss one game due to a sickness. He has the second most points per game on the team, leads the team in rebounding, tied overall with Hawkes, but in rebounds per game, close to 7 rebounds per game, which leads the team in steals, and has about 2.5 steals per game. And we've seen plenty of times this season when he has 4 steals per game, getting that defensive intensity up every game he steps on the floor when he's completely healthy. And after coming back from illness, we've seen it pick it up even more so against Maryland, against Kentucky, and really lighting the fire for a big run for the Bruins against UC Davis in that second half surge. I don't think there's any question Jalen Clark's been the MVP, arguably the best player. He's done it all throughout this UCLA winning streak for the most part, despite missing the one game due to a brief illness that was non-COVID related, I think. I'm not entirely sure there. But for Clark, good to go. He has been remarkable for UCLA on the hardwood. Second when it comes to points per game, rebounds, steals, he does it all the intangibles in building up his scoring. Now we're going to talk about one of the more underappreciated players because Jaime Hawkins Jr. and Tiger Campbell, they get all the love, and now Jalen Clark getting a lot of love as well. And while the freshmen have lots of stars, a lot of hype, it's David Singleton, who's been around for UCLA for quite some time, since the 18-19 season, since before even Mick Cronin was around, and now in his later stages as a Bruin, Singleton, who hadn't averaged more than 5 points per game, which he did way back in his first year as a Bruin, in the 18-19 season, has now upped his scoring average to 10 points per game, up from 4.8 points per game. So less than 5 points a game last year. He's averaging double figures, as the Bruins have, I believe, 4 scorers averaging 10 or more. Singleton, who has made 30 of 57 from downtown. He's shooting 50% from the floor, and even better from that from three, 53%. Single-handedly because of Singleton, who last year made 37 threes, already in this season in 13 games, he's made 30 threes. So he's on pace to blow past his career three-point shooting mark, both average-wise and most threes he's made in an individual season since he's been a collegiate player at UCLA. The Bruins overall shoot 37% from three as a team. Singleton, who shoots 53%, you take out his three-point shooting, UCLA is about a 31% three-point shooting team. It's all right. That's not horrible. There's way worse marks it could be, but that's all right. But you add in Singleton, and UCLA is arguably just outside the top 50 in the country when it comes to three-point shooting percentage. When his red hot shooting is what's helped the Bruins have such a good shooting percentage this season. If you have someone who's hitting more than 50% of their threes, that helps spread out the offense and give themselves some extra mobility in the paint for a Jaime Hawkins Jr., for a Tiger Campbell to drive. And of course, those guys hit their threes too, but it's been Singleton who has been the underrated sixth man of the year for the Bruins, even taking a one start with Jalen Clark out. Again, 52% from three, also getting some steals as well, but he has been an underappreciated Bruin. Even if he does get some love, he needs more love. As Mick Cronin has been continuing to say, we need Singleton to get more shots in the half court offense, and that is an absolute must. Guys who have to stick it up. Well, two guys both go with the AB initials. You have Amari Bailey and Adem Bona. All the hype on the freshmen. These two guys, it's freshmen. You never know what's going to happen in the college basketball season. Sometimes you need guys to go through the first part of non-conference play, build and build and build into something that is spectacular and in a solid foundation come March. Well, Amari Bailey hasn't had that yet. He's had spurts up and down, and Adem Bona has been trending upward these last few games, while Bailey has kind of taken a step back the last 3 games in terms of offensive efficiency and production. While he hasn't exactly been off the floor entirely, he did have a nice resurgence coming off of the big 2 losses in Vegas. Excuse me. And Bailey then had a good scoring run, about 4 to 5 straight games in this 8-game run, where he was a significant part of UCLA's scoring success. He averages 9.5 per game, 47% from the floor, 30% from three, but has 47% from the free throw line. That's got to pick up if he's going to get fouled going to the line. He likes to drive and get those fall-away jumpers or drive to the lane, but he needs to play with contact, be more physical. And while the jumper numbers have looked good, it doesn't always look like he's looking for that shot or always confident to rise and fire when he gets that extra pass, as showcased in one element during the Davis game when Don McClain said, hey, he passed up an open three to take a wildly out of control contested layup that doesn't even draw any contact and missed everything except for the backboard. So while he has some momentum moving into Pac 12 play, he's got to become a 10-point per game scorer, if not better, come Pac 12 play overall, and UCLA will be unbeatable. Adembona, 7 points per game, 63%, which is good from the field. Fantastic for him. 14 blocks, as we've seen him use his athleticism more and more and more throughout the season. A lot of big highlight blocks against Davis, and he's only averaging about 4 rebounds per game. We need to see Bona and the big man become more of a become more effective in rebounding the basketball because there are some teams in Pac 12 play. A lot of the teams in Pac 12 play will have big bodies and big men who can rebound the basketball. So you can't ask Jalen Clark and Jaime Hawkins Jr. to do the bulk of the rebounding. So one, Bailey become a little bit better scorer, become more confident, but he's shown signs of brightness. I would say Bailey about a B minus, maybe C plus at the moment. And then Bona, you can feel the momentum. I would say about a C right now in terms of his play, but he's progressing. You can see these guys have seen the ebbs and flows, ups and downs, peaks and valleys of the freshmen so far. UCLA, there's reasons for hope for these guys. If both of these guys are averaging 10 points per game come March, UCLA, I don't think is beatable. If these two guys have picked it up and the regulars like Tiger and Jaime and Singleton continues his stretch and Jalen Clark, and you add these guys along with their dynamic offense, their defensive intensity and integrity, these guys can add to it, and UCLA will be unbeatable. Is it a lot to ask Bailey to average just a half point more per game or Dembona to average 2.5 more points per game? No, because Mick Cronin wants to involve more guys in the offense than Hawkes and Campbell exclusively. And these are two guys who need to pick it up with already Singleton playing out of his mind to start the season with his ridiculous shooting percentage. You want these guys to be there in a moment in March when you need a bucket to get those points going. And Bona, extra thing for him, get the rebounds. But overall, they've been pretty good, but they need to be better if UCLA wants to be national championship good. They're top three, Ken Palm, top 10, the coaches. No respect in the AP polls because they're top 12. Yet the Bruins should look to get more respect going forward. Overall, my non conference stretch grade for the Bruins is a B grade. They're a B grade. Could be better. Momentum is an A, but they still got to get better and showcase hey, they can't go through scoring slumps in games as they do to keep teams in it, but their defensive mindset is what blows teams out of the water game in and game out. Started from Jalen Clark all the way down to the bottom of the roster from the first minute all the way to the 40th minute. The Bruins are just absolutely remarkable, especially during this 8-game run. 11-2, a lot of pride and a lot of hope for Pac 12 play and for March. It only gets better and more exciting from here. So let's believe in these Bruins. As we transition now back to football, we got some bowl news, some defensive coordinator news, and who's going to play in the bowl game. I'll tell you as the Two Deep was released. But first, did you know that driving high is considered under the influence? That's right. Driving under the influence of marijuana is against the law in every state, even in states where marijuana is legal. If you think law enforcement officers can't tell if you're driving high, you are wrong. Your friends can tell, your coworkers can tell, your parents can tell, everyone can tell. So, what makes you think law enforcement officers can't tell? Driving under the influence with marijuana slows your response time and how you can perceive time and speed. Just know that the bottom line is if you feel different, you drive different. And driving high, driving under the influence is not good. If you drive high, remember this if you drive high, get a DUI paid for by NHTSA. As we move forward in Locked On UCLA, started today with basketball. Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer here. Thanks for continuing to move on with Locked On UCLA today. Holiday season, we're excited. The Bruins football team, we're closing in on what will finally be our final game week for UCLA football this season. And for UCLA, Chip Kelly and company, we've got some slight news and notes to talk about to wrap up the episode overall heading into the Sun Bowl. Nothing too technical here heading into the pit game. But for UCLA, a couple of important appearances that we are expecting in the Sun Bowl. And, well, we'll start with one, the big three offensively. It's DTR, Jake Bobo, and Zach Charbonnet. You can add a fourth there. Kaz Allen listed at the top of the depth chart. There were rumors he hadn't been all in practice in certain parts. But those four, Allen, DTR, Bobo, and Charbonnet, Those four are all atop the depth chart of the two deep. So one, it's good. They've all been reportedly at practice. All the reporters everywhere has been saying, yeah, UCLA, those guys have been at practice for the most part, especially those three, Bobo, Charbonnet, and DTR. So it's important. And whether they want to help improve their draft stock, they feel like they want one more game together as a team to get that 10-win mark, equaling the single most wins for the Bruins in any season, which would tie a program record. Those guys are ready to play. And just a reminder that those guys can change their mind at any time leading up in the final week prior to that game before the New Year's Eve and New Year's Day weekend coming up. But again, also with my time dealing with two deeps, they can be complete BS. I've seen times when there's been fourth stringers, fifth stringers coming out. It's a bowl game. They're going to try and mix and match, get different matchups, keep guys good, healthy. You don't know what the conditioning like, although Chip Kelly's been important when it comes to conditioning for the Bruins. So you think these Bruins are probably ready to go and ready to play instead of practicing themselves for what seems like the last month now at this point. UCLA looks ready to go. Well, I mean, you would think they're ready to go. And with those three, you'd expect them, especially offensively, to be ready to go. And for the most part, any key guys who are in the portal, especially Barmira, he's expected to play as the kicker and punter. His final game expected as a Bruin in a uniform with DTR, Charbonnet, and Bobo, a swan song for them. Not fully any reports on Kaz Allen if he's coming back for one more year. He does have that year of eligibility because he's a redshirt junior. But still, if he plays and wants to come back, maybe the Bruins could see him come back one more year. We'll see. We'll see what happens with that. And the other final big appearance, Bill McGovern has been at practice for UCLA, and it's trending upward that he will actually be in person to coach in a game. I believe he's missed the last 5 to 6 games. He is supposed to be there. So maybe we can see what the Bruins defense looks like, albeit against Pitt, who is without their starting quarterback. Keaton Slovis has hit the portal and is not expected to play. Unlike some quarterbacks, I believe Coastal Carolina's quarterback, Grayson McCall, hit the portal, but he's expected to play. Slovis is not one of those guys for Pitt, the starter almost all year for a team that's been building. They love to run the football, but it'll be nice to see what a Bruin defense does with their actual defensive coordinator there in person, calling the plays, reading the game, and not from home, as opposed to just sitting there watching the game at the end for the Bruins. So it's nice to see him, but there still is some murky questions about his future. Is his career done as a Bruin? Is his career done as a coach? Whatever it means, based on the mysterious health illness that hasn't been fully detailed, at least from what I've seen, to this episode, from what I've seen for Bill McGovern, that he is maybe going to come back next year. Will they go get a new defensive coordinator? Those questions need to be answered in a hurry if you're going to go impress a new defensive player that you're trying to recruit in the portal or trying to get somebody as a late class of 23 ad for the regular signing day in February. Either way, the big five from Bobo, DTR, Charbonnet, Allen, and Bill McGovern are all expected to be there. It could change at any time for one reason or the other, as the Sun Bowl is supposed to see the Bruins at probably their full strength. We'd hope for the Bruins to knock down Pitt and try and get that program equaling win for UCLA. Now, as we move forward, we're going to get ready to rock and roll because, as I've teased, we've kind of been going over the transfers, and I haven't gone over this transfer just yet. Colin Schlee is the Kent State transfer, 4-star, depending on what composite rankings you go after. He has been rated higher than DJ Uyunglele in the rankings, and yet who's the last one to find a home amongst the big quarterbacks or one of the big quarterbacks? It's DJ, as the Bruins are able to get Colin Schlee, Dante Moore to mix in with Justin Martin and Ethan Garbers as guys that can truly compete for the 23 job and the starting role. As we'll tell you, what does Colin Schlee have? He's had his first career start come this year. He was the starter all year for Kent State, facing the likes of Washington and some tough competition that the Golden Flashes played this year. Played in 11 games, did miss one, but because of his prowess throwing the football, even running the football a little bit, he had a top 10 season in a couple categories for Kent State, throwing the football for over 2,100 yards. 13 touchdowns, that's 10th in Kent State history, and a 59% completion percentage, about 5th in Kent State history. Also a bit of a dual threat, too. 98 rushing attempts, just shy of 500 yards rushing, in 4 touchdowns for Colin Schlee, who is a 4-star transfer, just made his first career start this year, and does have 2 years left in what would be a graduate role for Schlieb. So this is a guy who could possibly very well compete for that 23 starting job. And depending if Garber says, hey, I want to stay a year and compete, if Martin says, hey, I'm going to stay and compete, he's going to be a redshirt freshman from Inglewood, all battling between Dante Moore and these guys. Regardless, this is scenario A. This is what I'm just going to base it off of. Say Dante Moore starts, wins the job, yada, yada, yada. Colin Schlieb, that's not a bad backup to have, right? Remember, in the early stages of DTR's career, when he was raw, got banged up a lot, got hurt, you needed a good backup. And in 2020, we did it to see Jace Griffin be a backup in a couple of games, almost leading UCLA to some wins. We had the likes of Ethan Garbers, who had to come in late in the Oregon game and play against Utah on the road. So it's always good to have quarterback depth. I've seen in college football, you lose a quarterback, sometimes your season's either over, or if you have the depth, you just never know because UCLA needs to be able to throw the football whenever, with whoever in between the pocket, in the under center, in the gun, whatever it is. You need your signal caller to be good, regardless of who it is. And the big thing is a lot of coach speak. Chip Kelly, probably one of the kings of coach speak, other than books and ball and everything transfer portal, is competition. He wants, as believe it's been reported, as he said in his early signing day conference calls, he wants competition at the quarterback level. And that will happen with Moore and Schlee and whichever the UCLA returners decide to stay. So Schlee shows that dual threat mobility a little bit that DTR had. Justin Martin could probably be one of those guys. Garbers is there. Moore is there. And well, I'm not going to say clearly who's going to start. We won't see to a spring practice or the fall, the summer. We're not fully certain what this plan entails. But considering Bo Nix came back one more year for Oregon, and Dante Moore, who would have had to probably sit most certainly 1 year under Bo Nix, would UCLA, did they just throw the bag at him and say, hey, NIL, you can sit 1 year, but you'll make more money here, and then you'll be playing the Big Ten in the next 2 to 3 years of his sophomore and junior and senior years at UCLA? Or the plan is, Schlee, we're not going to guarantee how much playing time you have this year. Dante's probably our starter, but you're a backup, a good backup, and you're getting a UCLA graduate degree. Are those all things that could very well be in Chip Kelly's mind and in all the coaching staff's mind? Or did they get Schlee, maybe have Dante in their back pocket as an explosive, awesome get, which they kind of expected, maybe didn't get? Either way, UCLA is stacking up the quarterback room. Schlee from Kent State fills that role up. Again, UCLA lost Chase Artopius to the portal. And Schlee, he would probably be a good backup, if not a third string, if Garbers decides to stay, or even a starter, depending on who wins the role. So Schlee, we hope, can fit into the locker room, get things going. And again, had three separate categories where he was a top 10 Kent State quarterback, missed one game to injury, and has played in 11 games this year as the Kent State starter. So that is your transfer portal look around at Colin Schlee. And the Bruins, they're stacking up. They've got themselves prepped and primed and ready for 23 and beyond heading into the Big Ten. As Chip Kelly's got them ready, Mick Cronin's got the Bruins basketball team ready into Pac-12 play. The Sun Bowl is upon us. 2023 is upon us. Holiday season's upon us. I hope you're all excited. Go make Locked On Sports Today your second listen. It's another show on the Locked On Network. They got your big game recaps, big takes of the day, whatever it is. They've got it all with you. Just a heads up, on Monday, we'll be releasing 2 episodes. One, we'll be talking about our bowl game preview for the Bruins heading into Pitt. We'll get that coverage going. And the other episode, which will come out first, will be a Locked On Network issue of the 2022 sports season as a whole, as it will detail from top to bottom, probably January to December. It's a Locked On special from us to you. I will not be on it, but it'll be released on the Locked On UCLA channel anyways. So 2-episode Monday, but we will have our special or a regular normal game week preview and prep coming on Monday as well, with that other edition of a sports in review for 2022. So those are news and notes. Thanks for your support. Thanks for making Locked On UCLA your first listen each and every day. It's free wherever you get your podcast, and hit that subscribe button on your audio feeds, on your Twitter feeds for Locked On Bruins, or on YouTube. Hit that red subscribe button. Thanks for the support, UCLA fans. Get those hands in the air. 8 clap time, baby. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. UCLA. UCLA. Fight, fight, fight. This has been Locked On UCLA. Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer says, Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, maybe Happy New Year. Go Bruins. Go Bruins. Let's go. Talk to you soon. Happy holidays. Go Bruins.